I want to talk about a mountain tonight. A mountain that all of us tonight might face. And if you haven't faced it, you will face it at some time in your life. And it's the mountain of despair that tries to sit on your heart when the night is the darkest just before the victory. The devil will come against you with everything he's got, trying to convince you that it's hopeless. Give up. Stop praying. It's pointless. The enemy has won the victory. Somehow, for some intangible reason you can't lay your hand on, God is not going to answer your prayer, so stop praying. And you know, the Lord in His mercy will allow the night to get very dark before the dawn, because when the night gets really dark, then we know there is no chance of deliverance apart from Him. Because in our humanness, we're tempted to touch the glory. When God does what we're asking Him to do, if we haven't come to the conclusion that it's hopeless apart from Him, then we become so arrogant, we become everybody's teacher. We have seminars on how to do what we did and have God to respond. When realistically, the truth be known, it was just so dark we were right on the edge of giving up. We ourselves were facing a mountain. If you're living in reality, you realize that we're facing a mountain like none other, perhaps in the history of where we live. Psalm 126 says it this way: when the Lord brought back the captivity of Zion, we're like those who dream. Now, this is the people of God who are taken captive because of their carelessness with the things of God. And they were ushered off into a foreign society. Their freedom was taken away. And they didn't believe, in many cases, they could ever be free again, or they could ever be restored to what they used to be. And there's a sense of hopelessness that in times like these, it wants to swallow the heart of even the most ardent of believers in Christ. But suddenly there was a freedom. If you know the story, somebody was praying. More than one person, obviously. God began to answer prayer, and He moved on the heart of a foreign king to issue a decree that anybody who wanted to go home to rebuild the testimony of God in their nation could do so. Not only go home, but they were given resources and protection and letters of authority. Everything came from the hand of God, and it came through a foreign king, a heathen king on top of that, whom God called His servant. Years before he was even born, God named him in the book of Isaiah, and He called him Cyrus, my servant, who was going to be raised up, and He's going to release you to go back and build. You see, God's in charge of everything, folks. You have to understand, there's no happenstance in this world whatsoever. But the people had come to a point that the mountain had become so heavy that common thought among God's people would be, this is just the way it's going to be from now on. It could never go back to the way it used to be. When suddenly there was this open door in front of them, and they simply walked out of captivity and headed home to rebuild the testimony of God in their own nation. And it says it was like a dream. It was like only God could have done this. How did this happen? How did a Medo-Persian king, they lived to conquer and subjugate. That's all they do. That's all the world has ever been about. Apart from God is conquering and subjugating people. And suddenly, this conquering, subjugating king just issues a decree. It says anybody from the tribe of God and the people of God, as it was in that time, can just get up and go home. And here's the resource, here's the letter, here's the authority, here's the protection. All the best to you. Go home and rebuild. We're like those that dream. This can't be real. It just happened so suddenly. It happened so powerfully, so quickly. Then our mouth was filled with laughter and our tongue with singing. And then they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things. Even the heathen knew God had done this for them. Then they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. I can just imagine they're heading home. They've been given this authority to rebuild, and they know only God could have done this. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are glad. Bring back our captivity, O Lord, as streams in the south. And here's their testimony to us who live today. They who sow in tears shall reap in joy. And he who continually goes forth weeping, bearing seed for sowing, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bearing his sheaves with him. They were telling us from their history, like, we had nothing left but the promises of God. We had no strength. We had no plan. We had no weaponry. We had no strategy. We didn't even have good leadership. We had nothing but the promises of God. And we had a weeping in our heart because the testimony of God through us on the earth was being destroyed right around us. But as we were ushered into captivity, all we had during this long night of sorrow was a promise of God that if we turned again to Him, that He would hear us and forgive us, and He would bring healing into our land. And even though we were led into captivity, we found God to be faithful. Yes, a season of it had to be endured. But at the end of that season, that appointed time, we were released again and able to go home and to rebuild this wonderful testimony of God in the earth. So we say to you, the psalmist was saying, those who go forth weeping, bearing seed for sowing, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing and bringing this fruit of faith in God with them. You will come back. You will come out of captivity. You will come out of darkness. You will be returned into that place that God has determined your life to be. And you will do so by His power. But the mountain that you and I have to fight against is that mountain of sorrow, that mountain of unbelief that wants to sit upon the one group of people that have the power to make a difference in their generation. That mountain that wants to sit there and say, this whole thing is hopeless. I had hoped, I had believed. Like the men on the road to Emmaus, they said, we had hoped, we had believed. The devil wants to sit with that mountain upon your shoulders. You can be sure he tried to do it with Moses. When Moses, after 40 years of perceived failure, was called by God to bring about a mighty deliverance, goes in before Pharaoh, the head of one of the mightiest nations on the earth at that time. It says, let my people go. And when he began, that was a type of prayer. Let my people go. Bringing back to God what God has spoken. Not saying anything in addition to it, but just bringing back the words of God. That's what we're doing when we're praying. We're bringing back the words of God. Pharaoh said, your people are idle. And so he increased their burden. And in other words, it got darker. And Moses himself was shaken by the fact that his prayer seemed to go unanswered for that short season. And he even went back to God and said, it's gotten worse since you sent me here and not better. You've not brought about any deliverance at all. And that could have been a mountain that could have stopped him. He could have made a determination in his heart and said, I'm done with this. I'm going back to the wilderness. I'm going back to those few sheep I had back there. This whole thing's a pipe dream. It's not going to work. But he talked to God, and he talked to God honestly. And the end result is he went back again. He was like that widow that went to the judge that Jesus spoke about. He just went back and he just kept repeating, let my people go. Let my people go. Let my people go, knowing that only God could do what he was saying. Only God could open that door and set the people free. Only God could part the waters of the sea and cause them to walk through on dry land to the other side. He knew it in his heart. But he didn't lose faith when it got to be the darkest. Paul the Apostle in the belly of a ship in Acts 27 in a society that's on a journey of insanity into a place where he warned it was going to bring about destruction. But yet his voice is ridiculed, it's marginalized, it's pushed to the sides of that moment of history for a moment in that moment. And when he was down in the belly of that ship and it's going up and down, these huge swells, probably waves as high as this balcony or maybe higher. And people are sick and they're dying. There's darkness. The scripture says there was no small tempest. There's no light. Can you imagine how dark it was in the belly of that ship? Can you imagine the mountain that tried to sit upon his shoulders and say, Paul, your life is a waste. Your prayers are a dream that are not going to happen. This ship is going down and you're going down with it. The power of hell that must have come against him to stop praying, just like the power of hell is trying to come against the church in our generation to stop praying. But Paul didn't stop praying. Paul pressed through. God gave him a word. Paul, you're not only going to be delivered from the storm, you're going to stand before Caesar, who thinks he's God. And you're going to tell Caesar, you are not God. There is a God in heavens who rules among the affairs of men. That's where you're going. But because you prayed, because you've not lost heart, you've not lost faith, I've given you the 276 people on this ship that are traveling with you. I've given them to you, Paul. That's the power of prayer. That's the power of not quitting when the hour gets the darkest. We're living at that time, and it might get darker before the light comes. There might be more sorrow before laughter and joy comes into our hearts. But by the grace of God, you and I are not going to stop praying. By the grace of God, we're going to pray. We're going to press through. That's what the Holy Spirit is telling us tonight. That's why you feel such a drawing to pray. That's why God is asking us to pray tonight to remove mountains from our society, our homes, our hearts, everything around us, when it looks so hopeless. You see, the greatest victory comes after the greatest darkness. It's always weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes again in the morning. And by the grace of Almighty God, I don't know what this nation is going to look like 5 to 10 years from now, but I do know one thing, that if I will pray, there will be a lot more Christians in this nation than there are today. There will be a victory. There will be a joy. Resurrection life will be known by many people. Many of you who are in this sanctuary tonight, you'll be raised out of poverty, spiritual poverty, and you'll be made into what God has destined you to be. There are preachers here tonight, you just don't know what you are yet, but you will know shortly. If you press through, if you break through that valley of unbelief, if you break through that place of darkness, if you get to the point in your life, as Paul must have, as Moses did eventually, I'm doing this for your glory, for no other reason. I'm doing this, Lord, so that your name may be glorified in the earth again.